It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wrestling Draft.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Wrestling Draft. And no, don't adjust your sets. Technically, I'm not supposed to be here, but, you know, there are some quote-unquote world leaders out there with some itchy trailer fingers. And as a result, the West End Country Club continues to have a depleted supply of Sri Lankan tea. So make of that what you will. But nonetheless, I'm still at home. I'm safe. The show must go on. And unfortunately, Scott McLeod isn't with us today. He's got a bit of a cold. He's a little bit under the weather. So I'm in the hosting chair this evening, even though technically, you know, if the planets were aligned, I technically shouldn't be here. But you know what? It's crazy how things work themselves out. But the good news is I'm not joined by just one guest today. I'm joined by two. So first of all, it's my sort of previous past co-host from the Fourth Official Podcast. It's Gary Morris. Gary, how are you?
Very well, David. Thank you for having me back on. Yeah, I feel I'm a bit of the kind of substitute, like the guy that comes on when there's no one else available. So no, it's nice. It's nice to be back.
Well, you brought you back off the bench for this one, and lo and behold, we're debuting one of our Premier League performers for the first time here on the Wrestling Draft podcast. So, making his podcasting debut for the Wrestling Draft, it is none other than the one and only JP. JP, how are you?
What a glorious introduction there, David. I am fine, super dandy. It's obviously sad to hear that Scott's got a little bit of the sniffles, but when you've tried the rest, you need to come and take the best. And that's the reason why I'm coming out of a self-imposed exile of doing podcasts. And this is why I'm hopefully going to add some value and entertainment for the next half an hour or so.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. Well, I look forward to seeing what you bring to the panel here. But we'll not waste any time. We'll dive straight into the top scorers of this week. And it has been quite a decent scoring week all around. You know, we've got some 6-pointers here. We've got some 7s, 8s, and 9s, but no double digits this week, unfortunately. But that might all change this Sunday. But we'll get to that a bit down the line. So joint third this week, we have the opening match from December Saturday night's main event, Cody Rhodes and Oba Femi, both scoring 7 points. Cody Rhodes obviously regaining the WWE Championship on SmackDown, and Oba Femi winning 2 matches on SmackDown and Raw, respectively. Now, JP, Cody Rhodes is your team captain, I believe, alongside Andy Mitchell, regaining the WWE title from Drew McIntyre on the road to WrestleMania. And to be honest, I think this is probably the best case scenario for you guys, given that it looked like you were in a bit of a hit or miss scenario, given that Cody Rhodes lost the Royal Rumble and didn't quite come out on top in the Elimination Chamber. So how are you and Andy feeling now that we're firmly on the road to WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think when we were choosing who was going to be our first pick.
Number one overall.
Yes, yeah, it was very much. Drew was in the conversation. However, we were narrowing it down to who we felt like were going to be able to hold the belts through to Mania, or have a chance to win or get themselves into a position where they're going to challenge for a belt at Mania. Now, Cody, we felt, had all the ups in terms of winning the belt back, or winning the opportunity to win the belt back at Mania. We expected him to win the chamber match. So the fact that he's won on SmackDown was a bit of a happy accident, and obviously that's down to the writing scenario at WWE at the moment being a little bit of a flux state. So yeah, happy accident to see him with 7 points this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Obafemi, obviously a part of the West End Wine Lovers. He's been doing well, being somewhat of a free agent across both brands, picking up a win against Johnny Gargano on SmackDown and defeating Rusev on Raw. So I'm curious to see what happens for him next. But Gary, it's a bit of a disaster for you, Robert Shaw, and the People, who are. Your golden goose, Drew McIntyre, has now dropped the WWE title. It looks like he's off on a filming schedule as well. So his WrestleMania plans seem a little bit up in the air at the minute. How are you feeling after SmackDown?
Yeah, it's not the greatest of news, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I think Obafemi's having this season that I really wanted him to have last season. So albeit he had a good Rumble, he didn't have anything up until the Rumble. So it would have been nice if he'd kind of started a little bit earlier from my perspective for last season. But yeah, Drew dropping the belt. I know the filming of Highlander is not due until after Mania. So I think our only hope is that there maybe is another twist in the tail still to come, and maybe the match between Randy and Cody turns into a 4-way or a 5-way involving the likes of Drew and Jacob, who have obviously got both of them, with Sami Zayn still kicking around as well without really a real direction. So there's still a possibility maybe they go that way. If they don't, we've probably got a Drew and Jacob program, maybe a kind of street fight type thing, maybe early on in the show. So I still think he'll be about, but yeah, not being champ is a bit of a blow, especially when we're at the tail end of the table. You kind of don't want to lose your champions, and same thing happened to me last year, and it's happened again this year. So yeah, it's not great.
I guess the WrestleMania season doesn't do you any wonders or any favors at all. But our second place scorer for the week is Ethan Page, funnily enough, which is kind of surprising given that he lost the North American title to Miles Bourne, but he's bounced back with a tag team victory, and it looks like a somewhat of a partnership with Ricky Saints going forward. So again, it's been a very good week for the West End Wine Lovers, scoring 15 points in the top scoring with Obafemi and Ethan Page as part of our team. But our joint top scorers for the week were across AEW and NXT a fair bit for our top scorers. So joint first with 9 points apiece, it's FTR and Joe Hendry. So FTR getting a title retention on Collision or Dynamite, I believe, one of the two. And Joe Hendry has been obviously featured heavily across NXT programming. I think he had a defense of the NXT title at some point in the last week, even though he did suffer a tag team loss to the aforementioned Ethan Page and Ricky Saints. But FTR has been doing pretty well, but they've got a big title defense coming up at AEW Revolution against the Bucks, whilst Joe Hendry looks to be... Oh no, I remember what it was. It was Joe Hendry defended the NXT title at Vengeance Day against Ricky Saints. That's where he gets those points from. But yeah, both of you, I just want to get your opinions on, where the direction of maybe Joe Hendry is going to be going now that we've got Stand and Deliver coming up in St. Louis next month. But I think the big question is, are FTR going to retain the AEW tag titles against arguably their greatest rivals in the Young Bucks?
I think it wasn't a mega surprise to see NXT belt up Hendry. I think it's a very smart move. He's extremely over. A lot of the big hitters in this WWE system seem to have his back. Randy speaks glowingly about him. Cena gave him a lot of praise on his way out. So for him to be belted up and be the focal point there, I could see him have that for I don't think he's going to be a transitional champ, put it that way. I can see him have it for a little bit whilst they heat up Ricky. I think Ricky is the long-term answer there if he isn't already with a view of being called up, post-Mania season. With FTR, though, not being all that aware of the AEW product, shout out Dan Shaw, who absolutely loves the fact that I know absolutely nothing about that. I do see that they've held the belts for quite a considerable time, so it wouldn't be a shock to see them transition them on to the Bucks, because it's been a long time since the Young Bucks have had them.
Yeah, and obviously, Joe Hendry's been a good second top scorer for the Jamesons, who have had a pretty solid run this season thus far, second only to Rhea Ripley, who's 40 points ahead of Joe Hendry in terms of scoring, but that is with the captaincy applied. Gary, any comments on FTR or Joe Hendry going forward now that we've got Revolution and Stand and Deliver coming up?
Yeah, I think it was one of the main reasons why, obviously, and we'll come on to speak about my team, that I wanted a NXT presence in this season, with obviously Stand and Deliver and Vengeance stay in there as well. And I think it's often a show that's sometimes forgotten about. It can be quite lucrative, especially at the kind of top end of the card. And as JP said, Joe Henry's a safe pair of hands. He's someone that's quite clearly over, and they've got quite a few decent heels in there that they could work with. I think that there's every possibility we maybe end up with a three-way at Stand and Deliver with Ricky and Ethan Page in there, alongside Joe Henry, which could be an absolute banger of a match, to be fair. I think the only thing with it being on YouTube as opposed to on an actual TV platform is how much they're going to really go into it, because it does tend to sometimes be the forgotten show of Mania weekend, and if it's not on one of the main places, it might be a little bit of an afterthought. But listen, it's still a decent show to watch, and I think Joe Henry, a safe pair of hands, and I don't necessarily see him on the main roster just now, because I don't see where he fits there just now. So I think NXT's certainly the best place for him.
Aye. Well, it's I think the current deal with Peacock's coming to an end, and I think they're trying to move away from that platform, hence why it's going to be on YouTube. But nonetheless, I think the engagement's going to be there if YouTube's the only option. But either way, that's a conversation for another time. We'll go into our leaderboards for the week now. So looking at our Premier League stats, quite rightfully at the bottom, as where they should be, is Gary Morris and Robert Shaw, the Peepel, on 70. I mean, I was going to make a joke about it, but I just can't get enough of it. Then we've got Scott McLeod and Tom Brock with Brock and Scott Connection on 81. Just a point ahead of him is Matt Smith and Alan Lucas, No Vibe Nation on 82. 1.5 points ahead of them, it's the GOAT David Campbell and Ross McLeod with Roscoe. So it's a battle for avoiding relegation between those three teams. And then 16 points ahead, the aforementioned West End wine lovers, myself and Stacey Smith, 99.5, half a point from triple figures. So we're painstakingly close to those figures when we've had a big donut as one of our picks so far. Then we have JP, it's you and Andy in third place with Lukav Druma Inchcock on 114.5. The Jamesons falling out of top place, 9.5 points ahead of Andy and JP on 124. And then the think tank of Stephen Wilson, Gary Kernahan, 3 points ahead of them on 127. So, yeah, it looks like a two-horse race now as we go into AW Revolution. But I think the Jamesons might just pull it back, given the structure of their team. But before we do that, we'll look at our Listeners' League. Fifth place, we've got Aidan Scott with the Young Schmucks on 116.5, which is weird because he has FTR as his tag team pick for his team. But on top of that, he also has Cody Rhodes, Io Sky, Don Callis, Jordan Grace, and the now injured Bronson Reed. Fourth place, we have Luke Scott with the Bumps. That's just it, on 120. They've got Obafemi, The Vision, which is Austin Theory and Logan Paul, Io Sky, Paul Heyman, Lash Legend, and Tommaso Ciampa. So very Vision-heavy team for Luke there. Lash Legend, obviously one half of the new women's tag team champions with Nia Jax, so it's she's been scoring a few points here and there. Then third place, we have Stacey Love with Say Their Name on 122.5, just 2.5 points ahead. Stacey's team been doing well so far, consisting of CM Punk, Joe Hendry, Tiffany Stratton, Lash Legend, Finn Balor, and the Usos. Very solid team on paper, if I do say so. But 2 points ahead of them is Nikki Presland, someone who's been quietly working their way up. Team of Dwayne The Rock Paper Scissors, consisting of Carmelo Hayes, Rhea Ripley, The Vision, MJF, Sol Ruka, and Gunther. Carmelo Hayes and the United States title defenses is definitely what's keeping Nikki's team up and running here, backed up with Rhea Ripley's dominant performance in the Elimination Chamber. And then top of the table, yet again, JP, I need to have some comments from you on this because we might need to call Dr. Phil here. It's Lee McAteer with JP's Love Child on 135.5, so 11 points ahead of Nikki. His team consists of Cody Rhodes, Joe Hendry, Paul Heyman, Tiffany Stratton, Lash Legend, and Dark State. So sensing a bit of a trend with the selective selection of teams, but Cody Rhodes obviously playing the big point scorer this week, and that's what's kept Lee at the top of the charts along with Joe Hendry in this case. So yeah, JP, tell us, why is Lee calling it your love child?
I wish I knew. He sent me a message out of the blue saying, "Do you like my team name?" And obviously, I don't look at the Riff Raffs League nowadays. I'm ascended. That's championship level football, shall I say? So when I went to have a look at it, I was like, "Oh, JP's Love Child." But I do think it's more an homage to myself and Andy's team choices, because 4 out of 6 in Lee's team are from our team. So I think that's where it's coming from. It's maybe the bastard offspring of our pick is Lee's pick. That's what I'm hoping for anyway.
I see the difference there, because we'll actually just dive into your team whilst we're on the topic here. So yeah, as I said, you've got 4 matching Lee's team. The only difference is that instead of, Lee's got Tiffany Stratton and Dark State. Oh no, sorry, Tiffany Stratton and
Joe Hendry.
Joe Hendry, yeah. And whereas you instead have Tommaso Ciampa and Chris Statlander. And by the looks of it, looks like Lee's made the smarter choice here, because I think you and Andy had a bit of a howler to the start of the season. You had 3 champions in the form of Dark State, Tommaso Ciampa, and Chris Statlander. And I think they all lost their titles within the first week or so.
So 10 days. Yeah, shocker.
But that being said, you have bounced back with Lash Legend winning the women's tag titles and Cody Rhodes obviously winning the WWE title. So it's kind of a bit of a mixed season so far, but I think with Tommaso Ciampa's heel turn and Chris Statlander obviously challenging for the women's title again, do you think there's a possibility you might bounce back with your team?
I would love to come on here and give it a lot of bravado, and I'm sure a lot of the guys are waiting for me to put my foot in it and say something and not live up to expectations, but I'm going to temper it with a little bit of maybe cautious pessimism, if that's the best phrase I can use. I actually think that we're not going to. I don't think we're going to be able to kind of move on as I'd expected. Because Lash Legend has got the tag belt, that's great. I expected her to be maybe more or less going for like the mid-card title. I knew Julia was possibly looking to give it up, and that was our thought process with Lash Legend. Heyman now being wrote off indefinitely.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Due to the fact that...
Surprise!
Yes, David will be cackling into his wine somewhere, I'm sure. I think with Heyman coming out, that is a big points drop for us potentially. The upside is obviously Cody could potentially pull double duty now on promoting on the way to Mania by appearing on Raw and SmackDown, getting us some much needed appearance points. I don't see him having any matches between now and Mania. With us losing the belts off of Statlander and Dark State, that was a bit of a Statlander's one was a bit of a surprise. Didn't look like that was going to be on the horizon, her dropping the belt, but it is what it is. We'll see what we can do towards the Mania shows, and if we're within maybe 10, 15 points going into Mania, I think we'll have a chance. But at this moment, a little bit pessimistic about it.
And just one last thing about your team name. Who came up with the team name? Look, I've drew my inch cock.
Yeah, so I have to say, like, both me and Andy have got like a little bit of a sick, maybe twisted like mindset. So I can't say it was all me. However, we were going back and forward with a lot more un-PG team names than what we ended on, and it was almost it's just simply like a play, like it's Macintosh, Minecraft. I was like, it sounds the same, so yeah, we tried to make as best out of it as possible. Nothing other than that. Nothing unscrupulous. Nothing that's going to get us cancelled. But yeah.
To be honest, I've seen the Listeners League team names before, and some of them have been on much, much worse than what you've come up with.
Yeah.
So, but I think the less said about that, the better.
Yeah, I have to be on my best behaviour when you're in the big league. So.
Yeah. Gary, let's not leave you hanging. I think we'll dive into your team, but then again, when you're sitting at the bottom of the table by about 11-point gap, it's really not been you and Robert's season this time around. Drew's lost the WWE title literally on the road to WrestleMania, and the rest of your team just hasn't really been scoring as highly as you'd hoped. Plus, with Bayley having won the women's Intercontinental title gauntlet match, that kind of only puts appearance points on your tag team selection of Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. So talk to me your mindset about, what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's not been great, let's be honest. We felt, myself and Robert, that Sol Ruca was highly likely to win the Women's NXT Championship, and she may well do.
To be fair, she does have a match next week in a triple threat with Zarya and Jacy Jayne.
The problem, obviously, is that Zarya program may well take over that, and obviously that's stopped what could have been the kind of momentum. I think Sol Ruca, highly talented and will end up on the main roster at some point, but I think maybe similar to my Jordan Grace pick of a couple of seasons ago, in expectation of Jacy Jayne losing the title, and she's never lost it yet. So I think it's yet another one where we've underestimated the power of Jacy Jayne's NXT title defences, and what we would have booked hasn't quite came to fruition. I think we all felt that Drew and Jacob would continue to batter 10 bells out of each other pretty much all the way up to Mania, and again, they may well still do so. But obviously Drew not having the title is a little bit of a blow. I think Julia has been featured more in tag matches than she's been in singles matches, which is annoying because she's obviously a champion. So I think we would have preferred to have seen her in singles matches defending the American title as opposed to in tag matches and not winning tag matches. And our tag hasn't been in tags, so it's been a little bit backwards. But one of those, on paper, it looked at a fairly solid team. Just hasn't turned out that it's been terribly lucrative, but we've still got obviously a few weeks to go till Mania. I still think everyone that's there, obviously Toni Storm's got a pay-per-view match this weekend that I think she probably might win, not being massively up to date with the AEW product, but I would expect that she should beat Marina Shafir, I would hope. So that will get some points, I would think, and then it's just a case of how many of the other ones can be on the card or in and around the card of Mania weekend. I expect Drew and Jacob will be somewhere. I expect Julia probably won't be, and we'll see what happens with regards to Bayley.
Yeah,
Gary, can I just ask you? And when you were choosing your team, were there any of the guys and or your picks were you on the fence with? And obviously hindsight's a glorious thing, but do you now wish you should have pulled the trigger on the other option?
Oh, absolutely. Both Julia and our tag pick weren't anywhere near our kind of first choices. We were happy with the rest of them, but I think just in the direction of the snake graft, we were maybe about one or two behind the genuine picks that we wanted. So they were kind of booked on the fly a little bit, as opposed to being nailed on people that we wanted, and that's been shown obviously by the fact that they're not the two low scorers of the season. I think you always want a couple of champions in your team, and we had a couple of champions in our team. It just so happened that Julia hasn't defended her title enough because she's been in tag matches, and I don't think anyone could have really seen that coming.
No, that's the thing about the draft. If you've been doing the wrestling draft long enough, you should know you always want to get a few good female picks off the board straight away, and you want to get a good tag team, because those are few and far between across all shows, maybe with the exception of NXT, but I digress. But you know what? As a member of the Hoops, it feels nice to see the people at the bottom. So I think because of my blunder on the selection show, an unfortunate turn of phrase turned into a Danhausen, shall we say.
Well, yeah, and actually, he would have been a brilliant pick, because
you know what? Take notes for the post-media season.
I think he's absolutely right, going to be up there on a lot of people's lists. He's the Mr. Iguana, I think, of next season. So
if Matt Smith can reclaim his vibes from this disaster of a tag team, I think there's a guarantee he'll pick Danhausen next season.
Just one of those seasons, but it's not finished yet.
No,
and
you're right.
We're not that far behind that it's not insurmountable. So I'm still hopeful that we don't finish the season in bottom place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we'll do there is one big event happening this weekend, and that's AEW Revolution. So we're just going to do a quick run through of who's going to be competing and what can that mean for the points going forward. And it's quite a diverse mix of team picks here. So we've actually got Willow Nightingale and Lena Cross doing double duty. So they'll be facing each other for the TBS championship on the pre-show, or the 0 hour as they call it. And then they'll be in the women's tag team championship match. So it's the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale against Lena Cross and Megan Bain. So Willow Nightingale are part of No Vibe Nation. So I think that's their only AEW representation for this season. So it could be a solid night for them if they get both title defenses out the way, but it could also be disastrous. 2 title losses in one show, that could be horrific for No Vibe Nation. Then you've got Tommaso Ciampa in the Blackjack Battle Royal for the AEW National Championship. Now, he recently turned heel, so this is going to be interesting one. Ricochet could obviously retain, but it's this one could go either way. Again, if you guys have any comments about where things might go, just chime in. This will be the big one though. FTR versus the Bucks for the tag titles. So it will be Brock and Scott with FTR, and the Bucks, who I believe are on
Jamesons.
Yes, the Jamesons team. The Jamesons looks like they'll have a big night ahead of them, because they've got the Bucks in the tag match. They'll have Don Callis as part of the Don Callis family defending the trios titles. Harley Cameron, obviously, in the women's tag match. So yeah, I mean, if everything goes the Jamesons' way, they'll be in good standing. I think so too.
I wouldn't mind the Bucks winning that as well, because it allows us to catch up on Scott a little bit. So we want FTR to lose that. Yeah,
JP, obviously you've got Tommaso Ciampa in the Battle Royal, and you've got Chris Statlander challenging Tekla. I don't know if those will go your way, given the odds of a Battle Royal, and I think Tekla is still fresh as AEW Women's Champion at this point.
Yeah, I see Tony Khan up to his brilliant booking. He gets a shiny new ex-WWE toy, brings him on, makes him a centerpiece, gives him a belt, takes the belt off him and then relegates him to what seems to be a meaningless, multi-man. My hopes aren't high for Ciampa coming out of that. My hopes are a little bit higher with, even though Thekla only just took the title off of Chris Statlander, could they hot potato it? It's an option.
Maybe.
Going into the summer. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. It's again. I'll have to look out for Dan Axel to kind of keep me updated with AEW results, because certainly not on my radar to watch it, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Well, Roscoe, I've got MJF defending the AEW title in a Texas death match against the undrafted Hangman Page, so they can only gain points from that one, and I think that'll be enough to close the gap from which they find themselves in. There's who else have we got? Marina Shafir
Moxley.
from Moxley as well. Yeah. So Mox on the Think Tanks team. Sorry, I'm having to jump through various. Yeah, on the Think Tanks team, defending against Konosuke Takeshita, who I believe has been picked by. Surely someone's picked Takeshita.
I think he went unpicked. Can't remember seeing his name.
Wow. Okay. So points for the Think Tank then possibly. But you know what? I think I had Takeshita down to win the Continental title as the end of the Continental Classic last time, which is why I had him on a previous team. But maybe the Moxley run's starting to come to an end. I mean, it would be disastrous for the Think Tank, and then if the Jamesons overtake them, with the Bucks winning, Don Callis making appearances, and Harley Cameron getting a win, that would be, that could flip the table on its head a little bit. But then I think the only other representation we've got from our teams is Marina Shafir on the West End Wine Lovers in a match against Toni Storm. Yeah, you never know. That match could go either way, I think. Toni Storm, I think, is, she's heavily protected. A loss wouldn't harm her. She's like the best character they've got. I think Marina needs a little bit of a booster to get herself going, but maybe I'm just being biased on that front. But so that's how it stands for AEW Revolution, and that's going to finish us up here for this episode of the Wrestling Draft. Firstly, both of you, thank you for stepping in and joining us as sort of sharing the co-host's role as two guests. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on your team and where things are going. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Oh, pleasure.
It's always good. Always good to be in your company, David, and yourself, Gary. First time's a pleasure, mate.
Yeah. Be sure to follow us on our socials, The Wrestling Draft, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, at The Wrestling Draft. Follow us on our YouTube page. You can watch our selection shows. It's always a blast to get a hold of them. And if you want to join our Listeners League, reach out to us, and we'd love to have you on board. And if you end up winning that, you can join us on the Premier League on a future season. But all that remains to say is, from myself, David Hockney, Gary Morris, JP, this has been The Wrestling Draft, and we will see you next time.